This episode of Mosh Potatoes brought to you by Suburban Revolt, featuring the Pogo 77 line of handmade clothing and jewelry for punks and goths. Suburban Revolt, it's a revolt against the mundane. Right now on Mosh Potatoes, we become young gods.
Young gods, do what they will, shall be the law. Young gods, do what they will, shall be the law.
We then talk to one of the greats at debunking on YouTube, Logicked. And this show's headliner is none other than Joe Keithley from the almighty D.O.A. itself.
Out for dinner at Chez Henri. Who the hell do you think you are? Rude to the waiter cause it looks like me. Who the hell do you think you are?
That's all right now on Moshed Potatoes.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Keithley from D.O.A. You know what? You're watching Moshed Potatoes. Don't forget the gravy.
What up, all you lucky people? Welcome to the newest installment of Mosh Potatoes. Now in this episode, to go from opener to headliner, we got starting off the review of Prayers by Young Gods. Should be pretty sweet. Next thing we got going on is an interview with one of the internet's better known debunkers, or at least he will be after you see him, Logicked. Lastly, we'll finish off the whole thing with an interview with the one, the only, Joe Keithley of D.O.A. I know you're all eager to get started, so hey, let's go away. Young Gods is the newest album from a duo out of San Diego who bill themselves as Cholo Goth. Now this is an interesting new development in the gothic scene. The guy who formed this band is an honest-to-goodness gang member who decided he wanted something a little better in life and wanted to do something a little more artistic. So he found this other dude, they hung out, and they started making music. This is the album they did after the album SD Killwave, which is another really cool album that I suggest you check out on Amazon. Anyway, let's get to it. The opening track on this album is Young Gods. The title track in this case is also the opening track. It's about street life through gothic eyes, and it's about how street life can be just as gothic as anything that comes out of Dracula's castle. Hear it to believe it. Next after that is a track called Love is the Enemy, and it's about broken hearts and the usual thing, and it's also about how no matter how badly we get hurt, hey man, we just keep on trying anyway. The next track is called Chthonian. Now that means sorcery or relating to deities. And you kind of get the feeling that in this track, the frontman for Prayers is kind of seeing himself as a demon. Kind of expressing himself in those terms. The next track is called Drugs, and in this song he uses drugs as a metaphor for demon possession. It's a really trippy thing, and he also throws in there what it's like to be addicted to the gangster lifestyle, as if being a gangsta was a drug. The next song is called Friends Are Poison. It's about two-faced people who stab you in the back, you know, the kind of people you're better off without. Well, he's had enough of them too, and here's his song about it. The next song is a cover of West End Girls by the Pet Shop Boys. Now it's more or less just a cover in name only because he does take the title, he does take some of the lyrics, but the music itself and the way he arranges the lyrics are totally the band's own. It's pretty good stuff that's worth a listen. Last track on the album is called 187 ACAB. ACAB standing for All Cops Are Bastards, and just in case you didn't know, 187 is the California Penal Code for murder. Pretty self-explanatory about how he feels about the police. It's about the police and how they see themselves as a gang too, and sort of a one gang versus another gang kind of thing. Really interesting. If this is your first taste of Cholo Goth, don't worry, there's a lot more to come, and I think the band's already working on their next album, but this is a really good introduction to them if you've never heard them before. It's available on Amazon.com, and what can I say? I think you should check it out. I sure as hell give it 5 stars, and as I said, their previous album, SD Killwave, San Diego Killwave, is also a killer album. Both are on Amazon. I recommend you get them. They're pretty cool. Next up, we have an interview with a guy who I'd like you to get familiar with. He spends his time debunking religion and just in general analyzing things cerebrally. His name is Logicked, and if you've never heard of him before now, you're in for a treat. Take it away.
A top hat, 3D glasses, stockings for a mask. Hailing from the frozen north of the United States known as Canada, Logicked has been debunking and leveling criticism at religion and more for 4.5 years now. From Christianity to Islam to more recently third-wave feminism, no ideology is immune from Logicked's cerebral magnifying glass. But where did this passion for intellectual honesty come from? How did the look come about? We caught up with Logicked to ask him these questions and more. I had to ask, how did all this get started? What made him want to start doing this in the first place?
Sure, well, I guess I'll go all the way back to the beginning. So I grew up basically without any religion whatsoever. There was no religion around me. And so when I discovered the YouTube creationist and creationist debunking community, it essentially blew my mind because I dove right in from almost no knowledge of religion whatsoever to way more information than I ever wanted. I dove in from thinking people were generally rational, mostly good people, to thinking they were absolutely insane in about a month. And so after about 6 months of that, I got pissed off enough to actually start yelling at creationists myself. And so here I am.
But how did the look of Logicked come about? How did it evolve?
I find it very amusing the way that people are always looking for some sort of symbolism in my costume. I guess it's that people also think other people are rational. For some reason, even people in this community who know that people are completely irrational expect things to work rationally. I'm not completely sure why. I had a top hat, I had 3D glasses, I had a suit. I thought that looked really, really good. Originally, I started out as basically a ninja look, but I really didn't like the way that looked. It looked too much like a jihadist, and so I decided to pull the top of the ninja mask back, stick the top hat on. I thought, well, you can still see my eyes. I mean, if I'm going to be anonymous, why should I have the most recognizable part of myself visible? Tried my mirrored aves, you know, aviator sunglasses. I thought, yeah, that'll look really good. Look like a fucking stereotypical cop. No, not at all. 3D glasses, sure, why not? People will hunt for symbolism in that. It'll be really funny. And they did. They always do. And then as far as the look evolving, basically I started out with my face covered, but not my ears and not sort of the part of my hair that's visible under the hat. And people would always yell at me, you got to cover your ears, man. You got to cover your ears. I can see your ears. It's so annoying. Like, all of you is black. And then I can see these ears sticking out. And I was like, yeah, well, you know the reason that I have my ears sticking out? It's because you people keep telling me to cover them up. Basically being a trollish asshole. And so finally, you know, people stopped asking. And so finally I bought a proper, like, spandex mask, covered it up, looked like a superhero at that point. But then people started in with, dude, you got to cover your hands. I can see your hands. All of you is black, but I can see your hands. And so I said, you know the reason why I don't cover my hands? It's because people like you keep telling me to cover my hands. And so eventually they finally stopped telling me to cover my hands. And then I got a full morph suit.
Now that I knew how the look came about, I wanted to know, of all the creationists on YouTube, why specifically focus on creationist Kent Hovind? What makes him more worthy than other YouTube creationists?
Well, there are a couple things, okay? So you got to consider where Kent Hovind stands in the creationist community, right? He comes from the tradition of older creationists like, what the fuck is that guy's name? Henry Morris and like Dwayne Gish and these people who are kind of, I guess, predecessors to him. He uses a lot of those arguments, so those ones are covered. And he also uses a lot of the crazier creationist arguments that you're going to hear. So someone like Ken Ham, the leader of Answers in Genesis, the guy who's building that giant ark park down in Kentucky or wherever it is, I hate to say this, but Ken Ham is a rational man compared to Kent Hovind by a long shot. Kent Hovind is the low-hanging fruit, but he's a hard guy to debunk because he actually talks really, really, really fast. And so he throws out these incredibly stupid claims, and sometimes you actually have to do a little bit of research to figure out where those claims are coming from, what the answer is, like where the flaw is in the actual claim. So there's a little bit of challenge there because you have to actually like put your mind to it. But really, the stuff he's saying is so stupid and coming so fast that it just wears people down, and nobody wants to do a detailed debunk of Kent Hovind. When I was first starting to do the Kent Hovind thing, I was looking around for what other Kent Hovind debunks were on YouTube, and there are a few, but a lot of them were really old. They were before people started commonly using microphones, I guess, because they were all like in text, you know, like Windows Media, whatever, what do you call it? Like Windows Movie Maker. And like Extant Dodo, I think, had some, but they were all like text format, and there were a bunch of those. And they weren't really detailed. They would basically come up and say, that's stupid, it doesn't work like that, things like this. And I thought, you know, there's this one speech that everybody keeps linking me to, this 100 Reasons Evolution is so stupid. And they say, you couldn't possibly debunk this. This is, you know, Kent Hovind debunks all of evolution in this. And I thought, no, he doesn't. And I'm going to explain exactly why, and I don't care how many hours it takes me. So up to this point, I've probably had 9 episodes of it. 3 of them were a little bit shorter. The first 3 were half an hour to an hour, I guess. So I've had several hours worth of just content debunking them, let alone all the hours it took me to produce that. Because I'm determined to give the YouTube community a definitive guide to why 100 Reasons Evolution is so stupid.
Recently, Logicked did a piece on an Islamic TV broadcast known as Beauties of Islam, featuring a man whose birth name was Joseph Estes. Knowing how reactionary a lot of Muslims can get, I wanted to know if he'd received any negative feedback from it.
You know, oddly enough, I didn't really. I've actually done Islam a couple of times now, and I intend to keep doing it into the future. So far, I haven't got too much backlash, but I suspect that as I become known as the Islam debunker guy, I probably will. Which I suppose is where a little degree of anonymity comes in. Maybe it's useful, but I really don't think anyone will do anything. I mean, we got other guys doing the same thing, kinda. We got the Bible Reloaded. They're doing the Quran Reloaded, looking at the Quran in detail and, you know, making fun of it. I don't know. YouTube is rife with people just piling on Islam at this point, so probably won't be too bad. But yeah, I've had a few, you know, Allahu Akbars and, you know, you're not gonna get away with this kind of stuff, but no explicit death threats yet. So we'll see.
And are there any threats he gets from Christians as well as Muslims?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I've had the same kind of comments from Christians, like people saying, you know, I'm going to track you down and kill you, things like this. I'm going to, you know. So you get the same threats. The thing is with Christians, I don't take them quite as seriously. Like, there aren't a lot of Christian terrorists.
With all the debunking he's done over the years, it begs the question of who was the most batshit insane person he'd ever done a video on.
Okay, that's an easy one. There's this fella, he's not online anymore since my video. His name was Lord Amun-Ra Yahushua Michael Lever. Lord Amun-Ra Yahushua Michael Lever. I'm assuming his name was Michael Lever. He was a very odd man who hid in his room, wore a baseball cap. Basically, when he started on YouTube, he sounded like a fairly normal person who was talking a lot of crazy shit about like Egyptian mythology and somehow, I guess, how it relates to Christian theology. Or I couldn't make out what the hell he was talking about. But he started out sounding relatively normal, and by the end, he ended up sounding like this. And I thought he sounded like the singer from the Monster Mash. And he basically ranted on, in the video that I did, he ranted on about why evolution wasn't true because, what was it? Like when you eat a banana, you don't turn into a banana. And, I don't remember. It was too crazy for me to remember. My brain, if I can't compute what the hell it means, I'm probably not going to remember it for long. But it's there. And at the end, of course, he went on a big rant about how evil the Jews are and there's snakes and pigs and whatever. I don't think I've had anyone crazier than that. The problem is that I'm slightly worried that he was actually crazy, in which case I'm kind of a mean bastard. But, you put your views out there, you got to assume you're going to get some pushback potentially, so I don't feel that bad.
And since sometimes this is done in tandem with his now wife, Edith Original, I thought I'd ask, how did the two meet to begin with?
Yeah, I met her on YouTube. I was doing a video debunking this German asshole who was basically running down atheists. And at the time I was trying to learn basically to read and understand German. I didn't really want to speak it, but so I made this little project of translating this video and then debunking it. So I put subtitles on him and then talked in English in my debunk part. And I had another friend helping me with that, but I had one point where I wasn't quite sure what two of the terms meant. And so my future wife at that point, Izet Original, she messaged me after the fact and she said, well, this term means this and this term means that. And if you need any help with these videos in the future, I'd be happy to help. And so for a couple months, that message just sat there unread because it's hard to read everything. And I didn't really check my messages all that much. But a couple months later, I came up with the bright idea to try it again. And I went looking through my messages for people who had volunteered to help because I knew some people had. And she came up as a person who was willing to help. And I'd seen her channel before. I'd actually been subscribed to it since 2012. This was 2013 at that point. And so I decided, okay, sure, I'll message her and see what she's all about. And so we worked on the project a little bit, but eventually the project kind of fell by the wayside as other things became more interesting. And 3 years later, I suppose now, here we are, living together with a kid. She's a permanent resident of Canada. Everything's awesome.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A profile of one of what I consider to be the best and most entertaining personalities on YouTube. Whether you agree with what he says or not, Logicked certainly gives one food for thought and much to consider. I feel that his particular brand of edutainment is well suited to the more critical thinking punks and goths out there, but don't take my word for it. Go hit up his videos on YouTube and see for yourself, and check out his wife's channel as well at Edith Original. Either way, these two will give you something to think about.
Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, an interview with the one and only Joe Keithley of D.O.A. I was so nervous when I did this one, and if you listen, it shows. There are one or two times when I say a question but don't really say what I'm referring to, but it gets clear later on. Anyway, check it out for yourself.
Hello?
Hello, may I speak to Joe Keithley, please?
Right here.
Hello, Joe. My name's Dean Ricks. I'm with Mosh Potatoes. We got an interview scheduled today. You ready?
Well, I forgot. You know what? I'm ready. I was born ready. So there you go, Dean. Go ahead.
All right, cool. We can use another time if you're like got something planned or I don't know.
No. Hey, like I said, there's no time like the present. Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. Well, let's get started. And if this starts to take too long, let me know, okay?
I won't be able to go on too long, but yeah, no, a reasonable amount of questions, of course.
Sure. All right. Well, real quick, let's start off with this one. I'm going to say the names of 4 U.S. presidential candidates, and I'd like your opinion of them. First thing comes to your mind, okay?
Okay, what was the question again?
I'm going to say the names of a few U.S. presidential candidates. Why don't you say the first thing that comes to your mind? All right?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
Oh, wow. Yesterday's news.
Okay. Ted Cruz.
Bible nut.
Bernie Sanders.
The best choice.
Last but not least, you probably knew this was coming, Donald Trump.
Time to dump Trump.
Definitely. What do you think a Trump presidency would mean from a Canadian perspective?
You know what? It's hard to say. If everything was like the way he was talking, then it would be one thing. But obviously, public opinion, Congress, and the Senate will play a big factor, and the Supreme Court too, I suppose. But for Canada, I think probably less trade. I think I think he likes Canada. I don't know, but he's a protectionist in that sense. Try and protect American jobs. Is that's a pretty valid point of view as well, right? Of course, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know what else would mean for Canada. It's really hard to say, right? So.
Okay. Well, speaking of political things, your last run for a representative, I think it was?
Yeah, the Canadian equivalent is called an MLA, but the same thing as like a state rep.
Yeah. Well, what was the greatest hurdle in doing that, and what do you think you're going to do differently in 2017?
What did I get out of it, or what? Sorry.
What was the greatest difficulty you had to overcome in your last run, and what do you think you're going to do differently in 2017? Lack of organization, lack of money. Okay. And we have lots of spirit and lots of goodwill, and people really liked me. But compared to the mainstream parties, lack of volunteers and lack of money. So like for May 2017 is the next time we have an election here. I've learned an awful lot about it, so I'd be a lot better prepared, and I think I'd have a better chance. Okay. I'm a person who tries to learn from my mistakes. It doesn't always work, but I try anyways. Yeah, I know that feeling. Segueing into things with D.O.A., are there going to be any more benefit shows to raise legal funds, defense funds for the protesters? And what's happening to opposing expansion now from Joe Keithley's perspective? Or Joe Keithley's end of it, I should say.
Yeah, no, we don't have any benefits planned. I mean, we're working on, and we just got a new album out the wall back called Hard Rain Falling. That's out.
Right.
Out for a few months, obviously. Yeah. We're planning a Western tour right down the Western States, and which will include punk rock bowling on the 29th. And then we're going to Europe in July. And, then we'll do a bunch of stuff in the fall, too, as well. Probably more U.S. shows, obviously, right?
Yeah.
What's the second part of your question?
And what's happening on the side of D.O.A. to oppose expansion right now, as far as, like, protests or anything, or?
Well, nothing really. I mean, the big thing that would come up is the pipeline. Is the couple pipelines are the big issues out here.
Right.
Most Americans wouldn't be that familiar with them, but there's two big oil pipelines they want to build through BC from Alberta, which is obviously where the bitumen, which is the heavy oil sands.
Right.
That's where it originates from, Alberta. So they want to pipe it out to here and then ship it over to India and China. But there's a lot of resistance, which I'm involved with. It's just going through some court hearings right now. Mm-hmm. So there's not much going on with it. And plus we have a new federal government that is not as oil mad as the Conservatives were. Right. We have liberal government. So hopefully they're a bit smarter about this, but that remains to be seen. Politicians say an awful lot of things when they want to get elected, and different things when they do get elected, unfortunately. Yeah.
This one's just for fun. Who do you think would last longer in a pit at a D.O.A. show, Justin Trudeau or Stephen Harper?
Who would be more likely to show up?
Who would last longer in a pit at a D.O.A. show, Justin Trudeau or Stephen Harper? Let's say in a perfect world, they showed up to the show and they're in the pit. Who would last the longest of the two?
Well, Trudeau, just because of his youth, I think he'd have a better chance, and he'd have some sort of sense of what it's all about. I don't think Harper would understand it at all. He'd probably just try and call for Secret Service to come and help him or something.
Okay. A quick question about history this time. Did you know any of the guys in punk's first wave, like anybody from the Vile Tones or Teenage Head? Were you familiar with them at all or knew them at all?
Yeah, we played with the Vile Tones, yep. I lived in Toronto in 1977 when the scene started out there. Which was sort of about the same time Vancouver scene started, maybe a little bit ahead of Vancouver. Played the Vile Tones, played with the Demics. I know Mickey from the Forgotten Rebels, played with them lots of times. Trying to think who else is out there. Most of the original Ontario bands, the D.O.A. would have played a lot of shows with them.
Okay,
Cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, good scene they had out there.
Right on. The last two questions for you, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. Okay, it's been 14 years since the creation of D.O.A. Day in Vancouver. If the Joe Keithley I'm speaking to now could travel back through time and space and give advice to the Joe Keithley that existed on that day in 2002, what would you say to him?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good question. Probably a million things. Say, don't write this song, don't put out that record. That's going to waste money.
Right.
Mostly from a label perspective. Not that much, right? I mean, you have to. I think in life you just go along and take things in stride, and if you have a good philosophy that you believe in yourself, then you'll usually make more or less the right decision. Obviously, not the perfect one every time, right? So, not too much. The D.O.A. Day was a great honor. It was really funny and not something we expected, right? So we'll have to do something for the bigger thing for the 15th anniversary of it, right? So
exactly.
Whether the city honors it or not, I don't know, but we can always make a big fuss about it ourselves.
Okay. And probably last but not least, what are the major changes in the Canadian scene and also the international punk scene you've witnessed over the years? What is really different from then to now, do you think? Or what has changed for the better or worse? Or
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that there's still a good punk rock scene. It's very underground, which it was in the old days, obviously, like when you think back to, Black Flag, Minor Threat, D.O.A., Bad Brains, that really early scene where the shows are small, like 100 people, 200 people, that kind of thing, right? There might be a few bigger ones, right, in Los Angeles, right? But so I think it's still underground. It's still got a lot of purpose, like politically, like the kids are involved, understand that punk rock should be like anti-authoritarian and try and get people to think for themselves. And that whole aspect is there. I mean, obviously the whole sort of pop punk, mall punk or whatever, that's, it's like, it is what it is. I wouldn't, or most part, I really wouldn't consider it punk rock, even though it kind of sounds like punk rock in a sense, right? But, because it, really got no guts to it. So those kind of changes, I mean, obviously there's so many offshoots of punk rock and variations of that, subgenres. I think that which is cool, because you can't expect it to sound like 1977 forever.
Right.
And in 1977, there were a lot of variations already then, right? If you think of like artsy punk, straight ahead, oi, or more Californian American punk type thing. So there already were lots of different ideas in it. It's just split in 100 more ways since then, I suppose.
Thank you, Joe. You've been great.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of Mosh Potatoes. I hope you had as much fun watching it as I had making it. Hey man, check us out on Patreon. Throw us a few bucks. Mosh Potatoes. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook. And I also have to give a shout out to Punks with Lunch. Link to them will be below. They're the group of East Bay punks who get together every Sunday to feed the homeless. Really noble cause. And right now, if you go to suburbanrevolt.com, there is jewelry there on sale where all the proceeds will benefit Punks with Lunch after Etsy takes their cut. So go, man. What are you waiting for? Again, that's it for this episode. I've been Judas. You've been awesome. All the links I want you to see will be in the description. And hey, what do you think of the Mohawk? Did it just for you guys. Again, that's it. I've been Judas. You've been awesome. Take care.